Hello and welcome to Views from the Market, mid-market private equity and M&A in Canada. My name is Mario Negro, and I'm a partner in the private equity and M&A group at Stikeman Elliott. For today's podcast, I'd like to welcome our special guest, Sévrine Labelle. Sévrine is the managing director of BDC's Thrive Lab, and also the managing director of BDC's Thrive Entrepreneurship through Acquisition Lab. Sévrine, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to have that conversation with you.
Sévrine, we always start our podcast by asking our guests a little bit about themselves and the work that they do. In your case, the work you do with BDC at the Thrive Lab and the ETA Lab. So we'll start there.
As you mentioned, I work at BDC since 2 years and a half now. I was recruited to implement a brand new $100 million envelope to increase access to women to investment capital, equity capital. It came from the knowledge that only 4% of all investment money in Canada goes toward women and founded businesses. So I arrived there, but before working at BDC, I used to lead a financial organization in Quebec called Elliott, where we were providing loans and support to women entrepreneurs and underrepresented entrepreneurs. And while I was there, I grew the organization from a small team of 29 to a team of over 75. We grew on our operation, and I raised a $60 million impact fund to provide even more capital for all of those, underserved entrepreneurs with the goal to creating a more equitable economy in Quebec. While I was there, I was able to see how women were strong and at buying companies. So a lot of our loans were serving to help women buying small businesses. And I was able to see how transformational their leadership could be when they took a lead on an organization or an enterprise. And so I carry with me that passion of helping entrepreneurs since then. And even before, I've been working with entrepreneurs for over 15 years now.
I know not only myself, but we're all excited to have Thrive in the ETA space because generally speaking in Canada, we need more capital in the space. And as you point out, we need to encourage more women to do deals and whatever we can do to support them. I want to get a sense from you and what is the goal of the capital? What do you hope to do and what kind of investments are you looking to make? If we could find a little bit more about what's your objectives for the capital.
So I've been following entrepreneurs for many years now, as I just mentioned, and I tend to see women buying small companies. And once I started get interested around entrepreneurship through acquisition and the power it represents to develop more women in leadership in Canada, I really got interested in the fact that we could support women not only to buy small companies, but also to buy mid-size companies. And I come from a place where even in the ecosystem, we were able to see how people don't know actually about search funds and the way to support ETA. And I've never come across the word search fund before arriving at BDC and, crossing your path, Mario, quite frankly. And so we come from a place where we have that belief that in order to be able to buy a mid-sized firm, you have to have millions to put on the table. And this is just not accessible for most women. As you know, women don't have the same level of wealth than men. And so how can we find a solution to help those amazingly talented women? As you know, women now have more university degrees than men. They have all the capacity to manage strong teams and to bring forward great businesses, but you don't see them. You don't see them buying those mid-sized businesses. And when I came across the model of search fund, I had a aha moment saying, hey, there's a way that already exists and that has been proven that could help those talented women access those mid-sized businesses, buy them, grow them, transform them. And at the same time, it's a powerful tool to create a more equitable economy in Canada.
And I know you and I have had these conversations about the impact that this money can have. And maybe we just kind of talk a little bit about where you could see this money working. So for example, I know you're interested in investing in traditional search funds, and any woman who want to raise a traditional search fund, that's that initial capital that they can have a paycheck for a couple of years to go and find a deal. But then you're also willing to support women who just find a company, right, and are looking for capital. And you will support them if they find a business and they're looking for investors to get a deal done. And then I think you're also willing to support women who are part of funds or who raise a fund to invest in businesses. Why I'm excited about what you're doing is, Sévrine, it's pretty all-encompassing. But I'll let you tell me if I said that right, but I just want to highlight how all-encompassing it is.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right. The $50 million Thrive ETA Fund really aims at helping women becoming entrepreneur by the way of acquisition. It can be through search fund, it can be through self-funded fund, it can be through MBO, or management buyout. So we're open to all models. Really, our goal is to bring the equity to help them have the economic support in order to buy those interesting quality businesses that are normally too big to acquire with, your own money and a loan at the bank, and yet maybe too small to be really attractive for the big private equity out there. So yeah, we're very, very excited. And I would add to that, Mario, one other goal that we have is how can we help building a stronger ecosystem in Canada? To support those women, not only BDC will make that huge difference. If we want to really shift things, we need to be many of us participating in that mission. Today, only 19%, one business out of 5, are owned by women. That's not a lot. And I think if we all work together, we can really bring our economy to a greater parity. And I think, it's just the right thing to do, not only ethically, but also economically.
I'm excited about the fund because it raises consciousness on the ability of women to be able to buy a company. Lets them know you can't take this path. And it's just another, it's a tool in the toolbox. If somebody doesn't believe that you can do this fund further emphasizes, yes, you can. A woman can do it. I agree. Let me ask you something. If someone is trying to understand the kind of commitments they make, what kind of check sizes? What's a bit of the characteristics of how you look at allocating capital? All funds have kind of parameters. What would be the parameters of this fund?
Yeah. So we'll be looking to invest 1 to 2 units in any woman-led search fund in Canada, even maybe a little bit more depending on the quality of the searcher and also the ecosystem. One other objective that we have is to have more Canadian investors in those deals also, and to keep those companies Canadian owned as much as possible. So 1 to 2 units, maybe 3 in some cases. So these are for the search funds. Traditional search, exactly. Or an immediate or a direct acquisition with a self-funded searcher, for example, or through a management buyout. That will depend on the deals. It's going to be a deal by deal basis. One thing that is for sure is that BDC cannot be the owner or the majority owner of a company. Okay. So we will always have to have other players co-investing with us. Okay. So we will be looking at taking somewhere between 20 to 30 or even 40% of the ownership of a business, depending on the deal and depending on how many other investors are around. And depending also if the owner or if the entrepreneur has also some equity to put on the table.
Is there a sweet spot in terms of check size? Is there a minimum, a maximum? Are you give people a sense of the kind of checks you want to put to work?
So our model is around $1.5 to $2 million check size, but it could be smaller in smaller deals. It could be bigger in some other deals. But somewhere between 1.5 million check size, 2 million in some cases, could be a little bit more once again. But that's how we model. Again, we're just starting, Mario. So we're also looking at the market and are willing to adjust depending on the needs of the markets, on the needs of the women, on the opportunities out there. And we don't want to close eyes on some acquisition that might be smaller than what a typical search fund would be looking to acquire. If there is a possibility for a roll-up strategy or if the company's solid and there's a lot of room to grow. So we want to remain open as we will learn alongside those women and alongside the ecosystem. And the third piece I would add to that, and remember that I mentioned that one of our goals is to also support in creating a stronger ecosystem. We will also invest in funds that are investing in search funds and are willing to also support women in that journey. Again, and we're talking about specifically Canadian funds of search funds. And these are actually the first investments that we're looking to do because we believe that, as I mentioned, if we want to succeed in that journey of supporting women, we need to have friends and co-investment partners to do so. So really, this is our first investment strategy. And for these funds, our check size are bigger.
Sévrine, limitations in the sense of industry sectors. Are you agnostic? Are you open to, a lot of funds they don't do retail, or is the BDC trying to stay away from certain type of industries, or is the fund have certain type of sectors that it likes more than others, or how agnostic are you? I guess I should ask the question.
Yeah, very agnostic for the moment. Again, because we're new in the field, we really want to leave our eyes open to any kind of opportunities. Of course, we will try to stay away from some more difficult sectors like restaurants, hospitality, where scalability is also harder to achieve. So we still want to buy companies where there's potential for growth, potential for modernization, and sectors that are not too, I would say, in danger of being disrupted by AI. So these are the big guidelines. Other than that, we're pretty much open to any sector. What we will be looking for is quality businesses and businesses that, the women that we're supporting will be good at managing. So depending on their own expertise, their own background, what they're passionate about, all of those things will also be important. At the end of the day, we want those future entrepreneurs to succeed in their journey.
Sévrine, when this opportunity gets into the marketplace, a lot of people call you because they're going to be interested in knowing more. When someone reaches out to BDC with an opportunity, what would you expect them to have in their hands? Do you want to see an LOI? Like, is there kind of like, and I know when I hear funds, they always say people always call them with opportunities, and the really good ones is what are you looking for when somebody reaches out to you?
Yeah, a few things. So first of all, and because we're just launching the fund, one of our big goals is to raise the awareness and the education in this space. So we're open to, receiving interest from any women with a strong background and a strong willingness to go that route.
Even if they don't have a deal in front of them, an LOI side, if they're interested, they should feel free to call you.
But one thing to note, first of all, one important thing is that since we launched, we received hundreds of inquiries. And we're just a team of 2.5 now, two full-time and me, half-time between, I divide my time between the two funds that I manage. So what we've put in place as a process, we will be organizing webinars, probably on a monthly basis, to really talk about what is this fund, what kind of deals we're looking to invest in, what is the process for a woman who wants to go on the search fund journey or not on the search fund. And for each of these categories, what we will be looking to see before we sit down concretely and moving forward. So it's not going to be a one-on-one meeting for all of the people who are interested because we just don't have that capacity, but we are putting in place a system to make sure that any woman who has interest can at least access the right information and the right sort of guidance. Then once we sit down, we want to see a woman that has ideally an LOI or at least close to an LOI, because we also believe that sometimes we can be helpful in finalizing that LOI or, having those discussions prior. So we want to be there for them. And for the searcher to have something close to a finalized PPM. It doesn't have to be completely finalized because once again, we think that we can also help on that front. But we want to see serious candidates. So candidates that not only are looking to have everything, like to receive everything, but candidates that are willing to put the efforts in place to be able to do what needs to be done.
Absolutely. Sévrine, I always ask our guests a bit about, I call it the crystal ball, where they see things going. In your case, one of the things, I met you a couple of years ago now when you literally just had this idea and you were just starting. And I've always admired your vision, the kind of visionary-esque perspective on this. Of course, I'm going to put you on the spot here to talk about where you want this to go. Where do you see this going? And obviously, some of that is obviously your hard work and your commitment to take it there. But when you look at what you're trying to do here in terms of what you're trying to build out, where do you see this? What's the trends in terms of where you see this going?
One thing I want to share, I had the pleasure to participate last year to the Search Fund Convention, International Conference in Barcelona. And one thing that I realized participating into that conference is how late we are in Canada when comparing ourselves to the States or to Europe. There's a lack of education in our business schools. There are not that many search funds here when we compare to other parts of the world. And I think that we are at the beginning of something that will grow fast in the next few years. And my goal is to make sure that women are included right at the beginning. And so what my vision is, or what I hope to see in the future, is really that what we will be building together is a truly inclusive search fund and ETA ecosystem by design. So we're not trying to shift things once the train is already far in front of us. I hope to build an inclusive mindset right at the beginning, and not just because it's a good thing to do, but because women truly have the talent, the capacity to buy and lead those businesses and transform them in a way that will make Canada succeed on a global scale.
Sévrine, if somebody wants to find you, do they find you on the web? Is that the best place to find you? I'm sure people are going to finish this and go, I want to find Sévrine, I want to find this fund.
Yes, the best way is to go on our website, bdc.ca, search for Thrive ETA Fund, and we have a web page and people can fill a form. This is really the best way. I know it's not fun to do, but it helps us manage the hundreds of inquiries that we receive. I receive a lot of messages on LinkedIn, sometimes by email, and it gets sometimes a bit overwhelming. Going through the website really allows us to make sure that you are in our system and that you will go through all of our process. So I think this is really the best way to communicate with our team at this time.
Sévrine, I want to thank you for joining us. I'm super excited to see BDC involved in this space. To me, is a visionary idea that's coming to fruition. I feel your passion, and I'm like you. I believe in the space. You can see already the difference that this fund is making by just what I say, conscious raising, and encourage people to do more of it. So, thank you for joining us today, and thank BDC for doing something like this. This is the kind of space that 1 and 1 make 3, and so the more we do, the more it expands exponentially. You're a big part of it.
Thank you for everything that you're doing. Really, we wouldn't be where we are today in Canada if it wasn't of you and all of the efforts that you're putting to building that ecosystem.
Thank you for tuning in to Views from the Market. Stay updated with the latest episodes by subscribing wherever you find your podcasts or visiting stikeman.com/viewsfromthemarket.